In Diablo 2, there's a lot of hidden features and mechanics. In previous videos, we've covered a lot of these, but there's still many more to cover. So today, we're going to talk about 5 more things players new and old probably didn't know about Diablo 2. Number 1. Let's start off with the one most veterans probably know, but many new players likely weren't aware of, and that is weapon masteries. You'd think they'd be pretty straightforward: sword mastery boosts swords, axe mastery boosts axe, but did you know that these masteries will often apply to unexpected weapons? The most popular to mention is how mace mastery not only applies to traditional maces, but also blunt weapons like staves, wands, and scepters, while axe mastery and spear mastery apply to melee use of throwing axes and javelins respectively. Unfortunately, it only applies to the melee aspect, but this is why you'll often see frenzy throw hybrids. Number 2. While this one is something most players don't think about, the plus skills you find on barbarian helmets, necro heads, wolf pelts, etc., even stuff like staves, scepters, and wands are actually fairly restricted in a couple ways. Certain skills can't spawn with other skills because they're too far apart in levels, and in the case of Assassin Claws, some skills are just too low level to spawn on plus skill claws, since only high level claws can spawn plus skills. Though these low-level skills can be gotten by rolling down the item levels of the claws using various crafting recipes. The last restriction on plus skills is some skills are a no-spawn skill, but just because they're on that list doesn't mean they can't actually spawn. It just means the skill roll needs to fail multiple times before it defaults to allowing them. Skills like Holy Shield Scepters, Poison Dagger Necro Heads, the Whirlwind Barbarian Helms fall into this category as well, so don't be too heartbroken when you're having trouble finding a plus skill you really want but can't seem to find. It may just be on this no-skill list. Number 3. The discussion on this one comes and goes as various creators discover it. Heck, we even had a video on it in relation to Enigma on this channel, but that is action frames. In Diablo 2, most people speak of breakpoints, how many frames it takes to perform an action in total, not realizing there's actually 3 parts to many actions: the wind-up, the action frame, and the cooldown. Understanding this, you can change how you deal with specific opponents, especially in PvP. The reason this is important is that you can only be interrupted during the wind-up portion of the animation. So it may take 11 frames to cast something, but depending on your faster casts, you may actually have 8 frames you can be interrupted in, or 7 if you have a little bit more faster casts. This is an example from the Amazon. Thankfully, the casting action points are fairly easy to figure out thanks to fixed animations and can be found on Amazon Basin, though you'll need to do trial and error usually for attack animations to figure out the exact points because there's so many different types of attacks. Number 4. In a similar it's there but most people don't notice it deal, every weapon has range adder as an attribute, just like every weapon has a base attack speed. The trick with range adder is that it impacts both weapon attacks as well as skills like Smite and Dragon Talon. This basic function of it is to tell you the range of the weapon, but many times you may notice yourself missing a lot, especially if an enemy is moving away from you, such as a ranged enemy moving back or a fallen running away in fear. This is because you start the attack animation with the enemy in range, but due to the limits of your weapon, the enemy moves just a few pixels too far in those 5 or 6 frames of swing warm-up, putting them outside the weapon's range when the action frame lands, auto-missing, much like you just shoot a fireball and the enemy moves perpendicular to it. It just doesn't hit them because they're out of the little area of effect of it. Or another similar example would be when you use Nova and the enemy just runs outside the radius. It's just that with melee weapons, they're a lot less blatant about it whenever basically you don't see the attack actually landing. So do keep an eye on that, and that may be one of the reasons why you have trouble with a melee. Number 5. Last and far from least is something I had heard in rumors basically, but kind of ignored, and after a comment by Manos Khan in the Assassin Secrets video, I decided to do more research on it. So it's coming in here because it's a secret I didn't know much about either. That is that assassins can increment boss pack spawns to prevent additional unique or champion packs from spawning in an area. This is most apparent when doing level 85 areas with Magic Find because that's where most people are going to encounter it, but it works in any area with incrementing pack spawns. But simply put, spawning Death Sentry, Shadow Warrior, Shadow Master, and a few others count against total boss pack spawns for an area, reducing the upper limit of bosses you can find in that area. This can be both good and bad, and while it doesn't impact super uniques because they're going to spawn anyway, it means you can spam these out upon entering a new map and make it so only normal base monsters spawn in non-generated tiles. This can make some necessary areas easier to travel on the good side, or limit your ability to farm unique mobs on the bad side. I currently don't have a comprehensive list of the areas this impacts, but it's safe to assume it impacts most level 85 farming areas and most randomly generated boss pack areas. And from what I can tell, the only popular trap that doesn't increment is Lightning Sentry, though some of the lesser used traps may be safe as well. Thankfully, this is very much unique to the Assassin, from the test so far at least. That said, I still feel the Dragon Talon Trap Assassin is the best starter class since, while not fast, it's sturdy and has a nice mix of melee and range and can deal with any threat in the game, just not really ideal for finding rares or uniques. But with this, it can be pretty solid for finding item bases and runes for rune words because, well, you have just basic units and they are more prone to dropping white items.